One man's selling, one man's buying, maybe 2 or 3 bottles of wine. End result, house is purchased. And I want to buy everything from Travis Perkins, stick it together, put my air cells on, I got myself an Airclad extension. We built the test piece now on the house, but we overlooked something totally magical. Air is the consistency, and then we can go anywhere. You never really know where an idea is going to come from. In 2006, I was not living in London anymore. I was out in the country. I was looking for a house, and we'd found this amazing barn for sale. It was out of budget. And then I found out that the house was being sold by an architect in London who happened to know a very good friend of mine, the architect that introduced me to my first project, 100% Design, back in '95. Gradually, we were homing in on where we might be. I still couldn't afford it, so we couldn't make an formal offer where we wanted to be. Give it a few months later, weirdly, me and him end up coincide. Get to meet this guy, this architect. So put 2 men together, one man's selling, one man's buying, maybe 2 or 3 bottles of wine. End result, house is purchased. And the bonus was the architect had a problem. He was working on a project in the Middle East, to build a container-based hotel for EasyJet. The name would be called easyHotels. And so during this very, very functional wine-laden meeting, I also told him that an inflatable cladding solution for the containers would solve all of his problems and he should look no further. And so began a conversation which developed into a project where we started to develop a cladding system using inflatable panels to clad these container hotels. We had to do a load of tests. We had to prove all the thermal qualities, the installation, the fire characteristics, and everything that was needed. When we started the project, I'd had a very simplistic idea before I met the cladding company that we would just put some tracks around the building and slide inflatable sausages around the building to insulate it. That was my simply naive, I don't know anything about doing this solution. Obviously, when the cladding company came on board, we created a tile system that connected to the building, and that's what we ended up with. Then we had the credit crunch, the sort of 2008 thing that happened, whatever it was, and they aborted the project entirely. So it was a weird time. We'd spent 1 year and plus doing this. We got to the end, we got the sign off. I was like, well, what do? We've done all this work. Let's make some Airclad cladding. What do we do? So the house I bought from the architect became the prototype. I was like, well, let's build an extension to the house using this new tiled Airclad system. Let's see what it's about. Better make something. And so I set out and we designed up a scheme for it. It's only 5 by 5 meters. We sent the drawings to Italy, said, oh, we want to build this. Great. What's it going to cost? You know, I'd had some rough ideas. I was quite excited. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't brutal. But the scary thing was they said it would be at least 6 to 12 months till they could deliver. And I was thinking a 5 by 5 product, 6 to 12 months, that is a non-starter in my world. I just thought, I'm going to abort this. That's never going to work. I'm not even going to discuss it. I'm going to go back to my first idea, which was this idea of sliding the air cells on the building. I thought, you know what? I want to make my system something you could get from Travis Perkins. That was where I was. I was like thinking, I want to build a conservatory for my house. And I want to buy everything from Travis Perkins, stick it together, put my air cells on. I got myself an Airclad extension. And I was calling it Airclad by then. And that's where it started. As I got into the process and we went back to Webb Yates, the engineers, we started working together, looking at the concept. They were kind of like a bit like, whoa, this is kind of interesting. This is a departure from the Inflate. I was like, it's not a departure. This is an enhancement. This is the next album 3. And it was a test piece, and it took us a long time to do it. We did it in stages. We were experimenting with it as we were kind of making stuff. So it was there were like a sprint look, and because it was all new. The tile system we had engineered, this was a new process. So again, it took some time to go through the engineering. We built the test piece now on the house. We made it and we'd seen it and photographed it. So we had the marketing material. We were using it. It was now part of the house, so we knew it worked. And actually, it's still there. It's still on the house to this day. So it's been there for 18 years now. And we built like a portable version, like a 5x3 or 5x4 version. And we took it to a trade show. And I thought we'd get to the trade show and everyone would be super excited. Everyone would want to have these pods in their garden and stuff like that. Now, bear in mind, this is 2009. Now we're in 2025, all sorts of home working and everything else that's going on. People do have these products, but we were ahead of our time. At this show, no one wanted it. People loved it, but no one saw a use for it. Why am I going to work in my garden? I go to an office. Why do I want a garden pod? So basically we did the show and nothing happened. I still felt there was something with it, but I hadn't made the connection. Genuinely was not connecting my brief to my product. It's staring me in the face. Anyway, so I stuck the pod on the roof of my studio in London, which was near the railway line that comes into Liverpool Street Station. Put the pod on the roof, put our telephone number there, and probably email address in those days or web address. And thought, well, if someone sees it and likes it, they'll give us a call. Let's see what happens. And that was it. And then we got a call from this really nice Italian guy. I had a pizza restaurant in Brick Lane. The little pizza restaurant called Al Volo. Really sweet. And he said, look, he said it in Italian. I'm not even going to try and be Italian. And he said, look, I've got a terrace and we have umbrellas on the terrace. But I think it would be nicer if we built like a conservatory out the front, and I like your style, and I think we could build something that looks kind of more contemporary. And so we had a meeting, and up until this day I'd never made one, so I had no idea what they cost, no idea like what a project like this costs per square meter or anything. So he came in and we agreed that he would write us a check for about 10 grand at the time. Said, look, you start making something and see where you get to, and then just charge me whatever it costs. And I thought, well, look, yeah, we'll just do wherever we get to with it. And that's the start point. And we were focused on like delivering the project, like this idea of like, well, we'll get rid of the umbrellas and we build this pod. And, the drive for him was in the summer, the umbrellas are good, but winter or on wet days, no one wants to sit outside. They want to be inside, so they can't use the space. So the pod would become this indoor-outdoor space. So we did it and built it. And it was really amazing. He kind of subverted his business model. What was happening was everybody was booking the pod and no one wanted to go inside in any case. So even in the winter, people were outside. And so he really saw that there was a big demand for it, and also put a DJ booth there. So when the restaurant shut at 11, it became a little bit of a mini nightclub for a few hours afterwards. So he kind of opened up his business model. So the thing was a real success. For me, design-wise, it was good. We did a nice job, very different to what I do now. We were very focused on the look and feel of his space and a kind of a sort of poddy thing that we wanted to do. We were really focused on this sort of narrative of what a pod is rather than what we wanted Airclad to be. But it was really successful. So successful, in fact, that he sold his restaurant, went back to Italy, and then sold it on to someone else. So he did very well out of it. We covered our costs in the end and got a good case study. Luckily for us, Puma came to us and they could see, they were working with an agency in the Netherlands, and Puma saw the Airclad, and I think they saw the one on the roof or the Al Volo. I'm not sure which one. We'd only done 2 or 3 then. That was all there was around. This is about 2011. And they came to us and said, we've been touring containers for the Volvo Ocean Race. What we want is we want to go bigger than a container. We've seen your Airclad, and we want to build something that goes like a container but gives us a bigger space. And we'd like to build a space that's like 12 by 12 meters to start with like a roof terrace. and it's going to tour with the containers. So the containers would be limited, and this would give us the scale. And we love what you're doing. And this is where it started to come together, where we're like, Airclad is this event system. This is it. This is the system. And as we looked at it and scaled it up and worked with it, we started to create all those things. We started to lean into the modularity, the engineering. We engineered it to go anywhere. This Puma one was engineered for hurricane force winds. So we went from bloody 0 to hero in one go. It had the modularity. The tick box that we didn't get as perfect as I would have liked, but way better than containers, was speed. We had more to do with speed. But what this did do was it created the prototype of what would become Airclad as in our event system. So from this, we could now see that we were going to start to create Airclad into this events world. Funnily enough, the next projects that followed weren't event projects. So the next two projects, we ended up building a car showroom for someone. So we built an Airclad car showroom, and offices, like office setup. And then we went and did a restaurant on a boat. So those happened, but it was clear to us that we wanted to work into the events. We wanted to take the Airclad to the events world. And so then the next project that came along for events was the one where really the turning point happened for Airclad. We were asked to design 2 structures for Kia at the Melbourne Tennis Open. And I started to look at it at the product. If we were going to turn this into a system as a product that we were going to reuse, how would it be? So we started to look at the grid, the distances between the air cells, the size of the frame, how it goes together, and all the general features of what an Airclad is. But we overlooked something totally magical. And with all these things, you need experience, which is, we turned up on site and we started to put them together. I was looking at all the bits turn up. Normally when you turn up on site, there's an inventory of kit. As I was going around, I was looking around, and I was like, there was this massive pallet. And I was like, well, everything's here. What the fuck's this pallet? It's huge. And someone went, they're the nuts and bolts, 6,000. I was like, what? 6,000 nuts and bolts? You take 6,000 and you times it by a few minutes and you start adding it into the crew. You're like, that doesn't sound great. He was like, that's a lot of nut and bolts. Anyway, we proceeded. We built the structure. We put it together. It was a lot of nuts and bolts. It was a lot of construction. It took quite a long time to put it together, I will confess. I got on the plane and we sat down on the plane and we just went, no more nuts and bolts. We got to design the nuts and bolts out of the system. And on the plane, on the way home, we literally sat there and started to see all the places you could get rid of a nut and bolt to nothing. So on the middle of a single high Airclad, between the front and rear fascia, there's not a single nut and bolt used in the construction. We worked out a way to get rid of everything, a whole plug and play system. And so in parallel, we re-engineered the structure into aluminium locally and worked with the engineers to integrate the new system to get rid of all the nuts and bolts, where basically this is where the kind of real understanding of Airclad comes together, and we sort of end into this sort of form follows function, which I love, which is the air cells, the pressurizing of the air cells and the plug and play nature of the frame that we now conceived and produced was rigid. The air pressure became the fixings, the fittings and the fixings for it. So we got rid of the nuts and bolts and we replaced them with air pressure, i.e. a tensile structure. The pressurizing of the air cells, the tensile structure, was creating this monocoque form that was strong enough to go anywhere, but light enough to go on a roof terrace. So my wishes, this brief that we had, these 5 points, speed, modularity, strong enough to go anywhere, bake in all the features, architecture, Airclad was finding itself. It was come back from Melbourne. It had been out in the field, defined this new brief. We're engineering it. And as we was engineering it, it was becoming better and better. It's less is more. We're editing out, getting better, getting stronger. And all at the same time, it was actually starting to balance and look looked really nice and really engaging. And we knew with confidence now that we could take a product into a market where we could repeat use it, that we knew what we could do to make that happen. And so very quickly, we focused the whole team on Airclad and focused entirely on the next generation of the Airclads. This is the third album. This is it. Airclad is now this system ready to go on the market. We're only in 2014, but we are launching very quickly a system, and we had a view that this system, this grid, would continue as it has done all the way up till now. It's timeless. The upgrades of a system from 2014 will interface with a system in 2025 and onwards, because we've kept it consistent, which was really important when I've been looking at our rental business and the sustainability angle, minimizing production and maximizing usage of systems. There's just so many bits of Airclad now that's spun from this learning that's opening up potential. When I did the cladding project, when I was working on the cladding, we were working in Italy with this company, Tensorforma, and we was in Bergamo having a dinner. And I had a moment at that dinner where I was sitting there, and I think it must have been 2007, 2008, something like that. We were sitting at dinner, and I said to the guys, I said, my whole life will be about inflatables. When I'd started in 1995, someone said to me 3 months in, when are you going to move on from inflatables? And I said, I don't even think we got going. But what I really meant then was I thought, well, maybe a year or two. In 2007, when I was sitting there, I was like, do you know what? The potential is growing. Every year, the more we do, the more we see the opportunity and the relevance of it. And it's like, now when I look at it, it doesn't all have to be about inflatables, but there's a magic sauce that needs to be there, and it's relevant because it's opening up all the doors and all of the opportunities. And so we've kind of got that as our consistency. So air is the consistency. And then we can go anywhere. We can go into events, we can go into medical, we can go into housing, urban farming, airports, whatever we want. Because the air is bringing a magic sauce that makes us unique in our proposition, and also genuinely brings structure, a minimalized structure and a maximum reusability. And this is where we land on this 99% air, 100% reusable. And that's the journey forwards where we really, really, really are going.